Hello, students. Welcome to the discussions on advanced steel designs. In today's class, we shall discuss the fundamentals about the steel tanks, introduction, the types of the steel tanks, and what are the different loads, and what are the permissible stresses as per the IS codal specifications. And then next discussions, next video, we shall see the detailed design of an elevated rectangular tank, plated tank, and also a design of rectangular pressed steel tank, including the staging. Right. In today's discussions, let us see the fundamentals, the codal specifications. Right now, we have the steel tanks. The types of the steel tanks are like this. That one, it may be underground. We already know, or it may be an elevated, or it is called overhead steel tank. Right. Now, here in our discussions, we'll be dealing with the elevated or overhead steel tanks. Right? As per the code, it is now elevated or overhead tank. Fine? Overhead tank. Then we do have the different types of tanks like this. One, the plated tanks. Plated tanks, they may be keeping in you the shape, rectangular shape, right? Rectangular, or it may be square or a circular shape, right? Accordingly, they are referred to as rectangular tanks, or square tanks, or circular tanks. Right? Generally, these plated tanks are manufactured with Indian standard plates, ISPL, right? As I have shown here, right? Its size may be keeping in view the transportation restriction, maybe 30 to 40 feet, or some 13 to 40, 15 meters, and the width 8 to 10 feet, maybe around 2.5 meter to 3 meters, right? That is a Indian standard plates. Using those Indian standard plates, we can manufacture either the rectangular or square or circular plated tanks, or the tanks may also be pressed steel tanks. Pressed steel tanks, right? There will be using only the standard sizes of the plates 1.25 by 1.25. Using that standard size, we need to have an appropriate size required for the design. That we'll see. Now let us see what are the codes that are dealing with these tanks. Now, the first code is IS 805-1968. This is a code of practice for use of steel in gravity water tanks, followed by IS 804-1967, code of practice for pressed steel tanks. Right. Then let us see the first code specification, IS 805, then followed by IS 804. IS 804. Now, the first code, IS 805, is like this. There, this is the code of practice for use of steel in gravity water tanks, right? IS 805-1968. Even this code shall be read in conjunction with even the other codal specifications are given: IS 800, 801, 802, 803, 804, 806. Right now, even the general definitions are given. What is tank? What is elevated tank? Elevated tank means that container or storage supported on a tower. Right? And here the important codal specifications are like this. The loads, first of all, what are the different loads that are acting? The loads shall be taken from IS 875, either part 1 dead loads, right? Part 2 live loads, and part 3 wind loads. Part 3 wind loads, right? That is how you may refer back to IS 875 part 1 for dead loads, part 2, part 3 for wind loads. Now, coming to the top, the earthquake loads. Fourth one is earthquake loads. Then 1983, this was the old reference. 1966, now we do have 2006, right? You may please back refer. I'll once again discuss that elaborately, right? Then we will consider those loads from the respective codes. Then the permissible stresses. Permissible stresses shall be as governed by IS 800 1962. This is giving old reference. Later on, we will have even the higher latest revision IS 800 1984. Now, as of now, we do have IS 800 2007, which is in the limit state method. 1984 IS 800 was in working stress method. Working stress method. Even it is referring back to IS 816. Right. Then, as per IS 800 1962, right, what are the stresses that are mentioned for design of compression, design of tension, design of bending, etc., are applicable, but only if at all they are submerged in water, which are in contact with water, the stresses may be multiplied by 0.8, means the stresses are reduced by 20%. Stresses are reduced by 20%. And furthermore, even for welded connections, now code is saying that you back refer to IS 816, and if at all that welded connection is also submerged in water, then you reduce the stresses by 20%. Similarly, if at all we are using the rivets, for the riveted connections also, if they are submerged in water, you reduce the stresses by 20%, hence multiply with 0.8. That is also reduction in the stresses. Reduction in the stresses. Now, next one is the thickness of metal. What should the minimum thickness? Code says that the minimum thickness of that metal shall be 6 mm, except in roofs and railings. Right. Next, thickness for corrosion point of view. The code says that interior bracings, if at all we are using, then they have design thickness plus additional 1.5 mm thickness. Additional 1.5 means what is that from bending point of view or from appropriate tension point, whatever it may be, right? Tension point of view or compression point of view, you design that thickness, and to which you add 1.5 extra. And now let us see the thickness of the bottom cylindrical courses or that of the plates, right? The thickness of the bottom plates in lower cylindrical courses are that of the rectangular tanks also as appropriate, with suspended bottoms shall not be less than 8 mm for a tank capacity of 5 lakh to 7 lakh liters capacity. The bottom plates, the bottom plate, right, like this, the bottom plates should be 8 mm thick for a tank capacity of 5 to 7 lakh liters, whereas the bottom plates are the courses should be of 10 mm thick, 10 mm thick for a tank capacity of 7 lakh liters to 10 lakh liters, right? This is the bottom cylindrical courses, right? This plate, bottom plate for cylindrical water tanks, whereas for the rectangular water tanks, it is 8 mm for 5 to 7 lakhs, right? Whereas for 7 to 8 lakhs, the thickness is 10 mm, right? Whereas for even if the capacity is more than 10 lakh liters, then you add extra 1.5 mm compared to that of the design thickness. Then next, let us see. Even the code says that the stiffening angles should be used around the top of the tank without roofs. If at all there is no roof, then we should compulsorily provide a stiffening angle so that the tank at the top is having some bare minimum stiffness. Now you can see some bare minimum stiffness so that it will avoid from bursting point of view, right? Then now the code says that the stiffener angle shall have a minimum section modulus given by Z is equal to 0.0578 d square h, where Z is the section modulus in cubic centimeters and d is the nominal diameter of the tank in meters and h is the height of the cylindrical portion of the tank shell in meters, right? And even the bottom angles shall also be used. The sides and the bottom of the flat tank riveted constructions with the 6 meters and above diameter shall be provided with these bottom angles, right? And now we'll see that how the vertical joints between the shells and the plates should be done, right? That is how riveted connections, right? For horizontal joints, we may use in 2 rows the rivets, and for vertical joints, we may use 1 row, right? That is all. Or now you can see on the other hand, even the weld, right? Continuous welding is shown between the plates horizontally as well as vertically, those joints, right? Now, coming to the tough, the riveted joints, now code says that minimum pitch of the rivets should not be less than, right? Should not be less than 2.5 times the diameter of the riveted hole, and the maximum pitch of the rivets in any case shall not exceed 10 times the thickness of the thinnest plate for single riveted joints. If we are providing rivets in single row, then that is what called single riveted joint. Then the maximum pitch should not be more than 10 times. Whereas if we have rows more than one, then 12 times the thickness of the thinnest plate. Right? That is how the codal specification. Then next one is now the code says that staggering in the rivet can also be done, right? In such a fashion that the distance between the centers of the adjacent rows shall be at least twice the diameter of the rivet holes, right? Keeping in view this, we need to stagger, right? If at all welded connections are to be used, then the schemes are shown here. Welded connection, shell to flat bottom, right? That is how the fillet weld is shown on either side. This is applicable for tanks over 15 meters diameter with a shell thickness of 8 mm, right? This bottom plate of 8 mm, right? Then similarly, single fillet lap joints may also be used only on the outside of the roof plates or on the inside of the bottom plates, resting directly on the sand or concrete slab foundations. The details are shown here, right? T and 5T. That is how the single full fillet lap joint, and single fillet and sealed joints may also be used for plates not exceeding 12 mm thickness, but not in flat bottom plates on grillage beams. This type of arrangement may also be used. The finally double fillet lap joints may be used uh, for plates not exceeding 12 mm, as shown here. This is how the joints, welded joints. Now, coming to the tough, the butt welds also, the specifications are available. Butt welds also, the specifications are available. Now, we will move to the other specifications, right? How the joggle joints should be provided in the bottom plates. That is also shown schematically. Now, even ladders may also be provided, right? How the ladder should be provided, how to what distance, right? And now code says that even the shaping of the shell plates, right? If the nominal tank diameter is 9 meter or less, then the nominal plate thickness for shaping of these shell plates should be at least 10 mm, right? Like that, if the nominal tank diameter is 18 and less, then 12 mm. For 35 or less meters of the nominal dia, the nominal plate thickness should be 16, and for greater than 36, then greater than 16 mm thickness of the plate shall be used. And next, code says that caulking should be done. Caulking is a process where we need to make the joint as a watertight at the edges of the plates with a round rosed tool before painting, so that water will not leak. Right now, this is how the typical layout of tank bottom is shown, and These are the codal specifications pertaining to the plated sections. Now we'll move to the specifications pertaining to the pressed steel tanks. Pressed steel tanks. Now, just a moment. This is how the specifications for rectangular pressed steel tanks as per IS 804 1967, right? The code now says that these are the terminologies of different terminologies. Cold water or liquid, or hot water or liquid. Means cold water means those whose temperatures are not exceeding 40 degrees centigrade. But if temperature is greater than 40 and less than 100 degrees, then hot water or liquid. That is the definition. By default, now we are dealing with that of the cold water retaining structures, right? Water retaining structures. Then the types of pressed steel tanks are like this. The type 1 tanks with all flanges external. The second one is tanks with all flanges internal, right? The type 3 is that tanks with bottom flanges internal and side flanges external, right? These are the three types. We'll see schematically also. Now here now code says that the type 1 tanks are normally used where the plain internal surface is necessary, or where there are no restrictions as to external access, or where the exterior of the tank is to be lagged, right? Then only the type 1 pressed steel tanks shall be used. Whereas type 2 steel tanks are normally used at a location where access to the exterior for erection is precluded due to insufficient space inside a building, right? Now we'll now see this schematic where this is a schematic showing this type 2 and 3 tanks are suitable for use where they are to be erected on a solid level floor. Means type 2 and type 3 can be erected on a solid level floor, whereas type 1 cannot be erected, right? Now let us see this schematic, which is a 3D picture of typical pressed steel rectangular tank with external flanges, right? So now you can see that we are examining a pressed steel tank where this is how the bottom plates, right? This is having 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, right? That is how 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4 rows of the plates are available, and this is how the bottom tier of the plates. This is what called the top tier, or this is how bottom and first and second tiers. This is how the tiers of the plates. Here this is called a two tier pressed steel tank. Now even we can see the bottom plates which are provided in 4 rows are connected to the side plates by means of the stays. That is how at 1.25 meter height, right, at the top of that plate, which is connected at the end of a 1.25 meter horizontal plate by making an angle of 45 degree, right, at regular intervals, right? Now at the end of this plate, even at the end of this plate, and at regular intervals, right? And also you can see that at the end of the top of second plate, because 1.25 plus 1.25 is 2.5. Now even bottom plates 1.25 plus 1.25 2.5 means this inclination is 45 degree, obviously, right? I do have the long stay, right? That is how top one 2.5 meter to the bottom 2.5 meter, the long stays, and 1.25 meter to 1.25 meter, right? That is how the bottom stage. Bottom stages are carrying more tension than that of the top stage. Though these are top stages are having less bursting force, and the bottom stage will be resisting uh, more tension due to heavy bursting force, right? And even now code says that alternative first tier stays may also be provided like this from 1.25 meter to 2.5 meter. Alternatively, may be provided if at all these are deep tanks. If at all these are the deep tanks, right? Then now we'll see the other specifications. Uh, the dimensions. The dimensions, code says that the nominal dimensions of the plates are only 1.25 meter by 1.25 meter only. That is a standard plate that is available, or as we were just saying. Hence, the nominal capacities of the tanks are in multiples of 1.25s, right? 1.25 by 1.25 by 1.25 means this carries 1950 liters, 1950 liters, right? Or it is 1.95 cubic meter, 1.95 cubic meters, right? And now the heights maybe we may provide one tire 1.25 meter height, or we may provide two tires. Just now we have seen the previous figure, that was a two tire 1.25 multiplied by 2, 2.5 meter, or three tire 3.75, or four tires 4 multiplied by 1.25 is 5 meters. That is a four depths, only four tires we can add, not more, not more. And the now let us see what should be the thickness of these plates, and what should be the sizes. Now this is the table one showing typical sizes and approximate weights and nominal capacities of the tanks with external flanges. Right? Therefore, let us see one example. If I do have these are the tanks with 1.25 meter depth, means only one tire, right? Like this, right? Now I'm just demonstrating here, right? I do have, right, 3 tire square tank. I'm demonstrating here, right? A three tire, a three tire tank, right? That is a first tire, second tire, third tire, right? First, second, third, right? Even at the bottom, you can see, right? First row, second row, third row, right? All along the periphery. First row, first height, right? Top tag, then next tag, the bottom tag. Right? Then, if I have only one plate, then the height is only 1.25. Obviously, 1.25 by 1.25 with only one plate, one at the bottom, and four on the four sides. Then it can form a cube like this of 1.25 by 1.25 cube. 1.25 by 1.25 cube like this, right? Therefore, then I require four on the sides, one at the bottom, 4 plus 1, 5 plates are required. Then it can be used for a nominal capacity of 1.95 cubic meter or 1950 liters. Then its self weight is approximately 400 kg. 400 kg. Then the external dimensions are 1.4 by 1.4 by 1.33 length, breadth, depth. Right? Even if I add one more plate at the bottom, one more plate, then it will become in length two plates, but in the height only 1.25. And so that two makes the number of plates that are required, right? 2 plus 2, right? 4, right? At the bottom, 2, 6, right? On two sides, two sides, 6 plus 1 plus 1, 8. That is how 8 number of plates are required. 2 on the bottom, 2 on the two sides, 2 plus 2 plus 2, 6, and 2 on either side of the tank. Therefore, 8 plates are required. Then that can carry 3900 liters. and it's approximately sulfate is equal to 700 kg, and the external dimensions are like this: 2.65 by 1.4 by 1.33. I think students, now you can see like that the size, length and breadth for this much of height, 1.25 meter only. But for what length, what breadth, how much of carrying water storing capacity, now I do have 95,550 liters, right, like that. This is how for two tires means two plates, two pressed steel plates, if at all they are used with a height 2.5 meter, then 2.5 by length is 2.5 and only one plate 1.25, then at least you require 14 plates. Sulfate is equal to sulfate is equal to 1400 kg. It can be used to store 7800 liters. Then the external dimensions are 2.65 by 1.4 by 2.58. That is how you can see for other dimensions up to 8.75 by 8.75. Then the same is repeated for the three plates height, three tire 1.25 multiplied by 3. Therefore the first size is 3.75 by 3.75 by 3.75. Once again it is a cube of 3.75. Then at least you require 5 numbers of the plates, and it can store 52,650 liters. Its sulfate is equal to 5050 kgs. Its outer dimensions are 3.9 by 3.9 by 3.83. Like that, you can see up to 16.25 by 16.25, 16.25 by 16.25 with three tires, and even I may have the 4 tires. Then 5 meter depth, for which the bare minimum dimension is 3.75 by 3.75 with 3 plates, right? Whereas the depth is 4 plates, then you require 57 plates, and it can store 70,200 liters with sulfate of the tanks 7,100 kgs with external dimensions 3.9 by 3.9 by 5.08, 5.08. That is how the up to four plates we can use, 4 tires we can use. Then next specification is minimum nominal thickness of the plates, right? If the depth of the tank is only just a single tire 1.25 meter, then all the bottom plates as well as that of the 4 sides is a cubic tank, right? Cubic tank. Then all such plates should be at least 3.15 thick, right? The thickness should be 3.15. And if I do have depth as 2 plates or 2 tires, this is how I'm just demonstrating 3 tires now, right? I'm just demonstrating 3 tires. If you have only 2 tires, then 2 multiplied 1.25, 2.5 meter, then bottom plates and the first tire of the sides. First tire means the bottom is what called the first tire. This tire, both bottom and first tire should have at least 6 mm thick, whereas this top tire should be of at least 5 mm thick. Likewise, if you have 3 tires like this, what I'm demonstrating is 3 tires, then this bottom plates as well as the first tire of the sides should be 6 mm thick, whereas this second tire should be 6 mm, and the top tire should be 5 mm. Likewise, if you have 4 tires, then the bottom and first tire should be 8 mm thick, and the second and third tire should be 6 mm thick plate, and the top tire should be 5 mm. Therefore, you need not calculate as required in rectangular plated tanks. There will calculate the thickness from the bending point of view, but here you need not calculate. The code has already given, if that's the first tire, that's of the bare minimum thickness. If bottom plate, that is of the bare minimum thickness, right? Already calculations are already proved, hence they are readily given as a ready reckoner here. Then we'll now go to this figure where it shows the flange joints. You can see all the flanges outside, right? This is a type one, type one. Even you can see the jointing between the bottom plate to bottom plate. A joint is shown here, right? Even the joint between a bottom plate to the top, the side plate with caulking, right? Partially squared, right? Even now you can see plane joints squared, right? These are plane joints with partly squared. Now you can see it is in the form of it is not perfectly 90-degree here, right? It is akin to that of a C shape. That is what called partly squared. But here you can see the joints are perfectly almost 90-degree with this root radius, right? Small root radius will be there. These are what called the squared flanges, but now the bottom plate is having the flanges outside type 1 connection, right? That is how the joints along with the caulking. This what we are seeing is caulking, water tightness, right? And this is how the corner details, right, for that same squared flanges, right, using an angle, or an angle will be used there, right, for connection of these two flanges which are external, right? Then let's move to the next table. Our next discussion is I'll skip this. The code says that the if at all we are having the cover plates they should be conforming to mild steel, conforming to IS 226, or that of the galvanized sheets conforming to IS 277. And if we do have a manhole at the top of the cover, right, cover, then the diameter should not be less than 450, if at all that is a circular, or if at all that is a square, 450 mm by 450 mm, so that we can have an access into the tank for cleaning purpose or other for maintenance purposes, right? Then uh, the erection process also given, erection process followed by how the inspection should be done. Now let us come back to the packing, how the packing should be done is also demonstrated here. And let us see, this is how the bottom plates are supported on rolled steel joists or beams, ISMB or ISWB as appropriate, rolled steel joists or rolled steel beams, right? The external flanges which are connected by means of the either riveting or bolting are supported over the joists or beams matching with the longitudinal axis with that of the joint axis, right? The joint is also having a central axis. Its central axis is matching with the centroidal axis of vertical central axis of the joist. That is how the load transfer will be happening onto the joists or beams. And even the dwarf walls supports can also be used as shown here. Now, let's move to the next discussions. Now, I'll move to the other theory part like this, where we'll see the so far we have seen these two codes, IS 805 and IS 804, which are used respectively for gravity water tanks as well as pressure steel tanks. We have elaborately seen the code specifications. Now let us move to, even we have seen that the loads, how the loads should be calculated, dead loads and live loads and wind loads. Now I'll just quickly touch the wind loads from using IS 875. Even the code says that water density should be taken as 9.81 kilonewton per meter cube. As per IS 875, part 2, right? And the dead load or sulfate of the steel from IS 800 1987 part 1 may be taken as 7850 kg per meter cube or 78.5 kilonewton per meter cube. And wind load from IS 875 part 3 is like this. In that code, we do have the basic wind speed given for the entire country in the form of contours. Even in IS 800 1984 also, the basic wind speed is also available. Either you refer either of the code or IS 875 part 3, that basic wind speed VB is given. Now, in order to get the design wind speed, I need to see what is K1, K2, K3, right? Where the K1 is called risk coefficient, right? And K2 is called the terrain height and structure factor, and K3 is what called topography factor, right? Whereas for uh, the return periods of 50 years for permanent structures, or the structure may be a temporary structure which is designed only for 5 years. There we can see what are the risk coefficients K1 from IS 875 part 3. Similarly, for these class A means where the size of the maximum size is 10 meter. If the size is between 10 to 30 meters, class B. If the size is greater than 10 meters, class C, right? For different terrain categories, I do have terrain height and structure factors K2. Keeping in view the length, breadth, height, their ratios L by B, L by H. For these two ratios, I do have different K2 values available in that code. And K3 is a topography factor. Generally, if the inclination of that terrain is not more than 2 degrees, then K3 is taken is equal to 1. Otherwise, a separate formula is given. You may please refer back to that formula, right? Once I get these three factors, then I'll multiply with basic wind in meter per second to get the wind speed at a height of Z above the ground level, right? Then where the total height of the structure is capital H, right? Once I get this Vz at a height of Z in meter per second, then I'll get the design wind pressure is equal to 0.6 multiplied by Vz square Newton per meter square. Then wind force is now given by CF multiplied by PZ multiplied by AE. Right? PZ multiplied by AE, where AE is the exposed area of that water tank or that of that structure, and PZ is the design wind pressure, and CF is the pressure coefficient, right? Whereas if at all we do have permeability where the wind can pass through the structure, then I do have external and internal pressure coefficients. Then in such a case, the force coefficient is given by CPE minus CPI multiplied by PZ multiplied by AE, right? Then either of the two. If wind cannot pass through that component, then the design force is given by CF multiplied by PZ multiplied by AE, Then, however, for our tanks where wind cannot enter into the tank, then CF multiplied by PZ multiplied by AE. Whereas for the design of the staging, CPE minus CPI, that can also be considered, right? We'll see during designs. Now, even earthquake loads need to be considered using IS 1893 2016 version. There we can see using seismic coefficient method, the seismic horizontal acceleration or coefficient AH is given with ZI by 2R, SA by G, where Z is the zone factor and I is the importance factor. Generally, for important buildings, it is 1.5, and R is a response reduction factor. For RCC structures, it is 3, and for steel structures, it is 5. and SA by G is the ratio of the spectral acceleration to that of the acceleration due to gravity, right? This depends upon the time period of oscillation of the structure, and which is a function of the soil characteristics for hard, medium, and soft soils. Keeping into SA by G, I do have the time period, or keeping in view the time period, SA by G can be calculated. Right? Even the formula are available for time period of RCC structures and for steel structures. Therefore, once I get the time period, for the time period, keeping in view the nature of the soil, we can interpolate SA by using this graph. Once I get that seismic horizontal uh, coefficient, coefficient, then I'll multiply with acceleration due to gravity so that I'll get the SA value. Right, that SA is the acceleration with which the footings or the entire structure, actually the structure which is supported on the footing, will be vibrated with that much of acceleration. Now, this you already seen the increase in permissible stresses as per IS 800, because the code is always referring back to IS 800 for section designs as well as that of the connection designs. Right, for section designs, the permissible stresses may be increased by 33.33 percentage if at all you are considering the lateral loads in the form of wind and earthquake. And if you are designing the wind designing for wind and earthquake, the connections such as rivets or bolts or welds, then those connections in those connections, the stresses, permissible stresses, can be increased by 25%. And the direct axial tension sigma 80 as per IS 800 is 0.6 Fi, basic value for section designs. If at all those sections are submerged in water, as per this IS 805, we can say reduced by 20%, hence multiply with 0.8, multiplied by 0.6 Fi. Right? And permissible stresses in bending sigma BCT, bending compressive or tensile stress, for normal sections 0.66 Fi, but all the submerged in water, multiplied by 0.8. Then stresses in connections such as rivets or bolts or welds. Now, for the rivets, I'll refer back to IS 800 1984, table 8.1 from page number 95. There I do have the permissible stress in tension, permissible stress in shear, permissible stress in bearing for power-driven shop rivets, um, uh, and other rivets, right? Therefore, from that, I'll note down the appropriate value, and if at all they are inundated in water, I'll multiply those appropriate values with 0.8 so that it will reduce by 20%. Now, this you already seen from IS 805 that 5 to 7 lakh the thickness should be 8, and 7 to 10 lakhs the thickness should be 10 mm, 10 mm, and the roof plates should be 5 meters. Now I'll move to the further discussions on uh, staging, right? Staging or tower. This staging means the tank is supported on a set of columns which are connected by means of bracings, right? That part, what now I'm highlighting. But for this tank, this is a solid tank supported on a structure that is called a staging, right? Or this is sometimes called tower, right? Therefore, this staging or tower consists of one, columns, two, horizontal bracings, three, diagonal bracings, right? Supported on a base plate which is resting on a footing. That is how the staging. Then the staging shall be analyzed for wind or earthquake, so that if any additional loads that are coming due to the lateral loads in the form of earthquake or wind, they must also be taken into account during the designs. Now we'll see the analysis part of these towers or staging. This analysis of the staging for additional loads in the columns due to either wind or earthquake. Either of the two is true. Now I'm demonstrating for wind, right? Let us assume that this is a case one, wind normal to the side of staging or tower. To start with, I'm showing a tower with 4 columns, right? Assuming that this is a cylindrical tank, right? Hence, it is having a radius of r. Therefore, along that radius r, these are the 4 columns. 4 columns they are there, right? At a distance of r. If that radial that distance is r, then that horizontal distance from this CG of this 4 columns to that of this bracing is at a distance of r by root 2, because this is 45 degree, 45 degree, r by root 2. Similarly, this is r by root 2, r by root 2, r by root 2. Then the same is now shown in plan here. This is how that plan, 4 columns, 4 columns. Now wind is normal. Normal means that is a normal to this surface, one plane, one plane, normal to this plane. That is how the wind is blowing. You please see this, the wind is blowing like this, normal to this surface, normal to this surface. Then once I say wind acting normal to this plane, obviously this entire staging will try to overturn like this. Hence the members that are facing the wind will be under tension. The members away from the wind, that is what called on leeward side, they will be under compression. They will be under compression. Those members which are there on the windward side will be under tension. They will be under extension. Right? That is how these all columns members are under tension. These are under compression. This is the overturning movement, which is trying to overturn the entire staging, interstaging. But resistance is offered by the sections in the form of section modulus, or in the form of moment of inertia by the columns at the supports, right? Hence that gives rise to moment of resistance. That is what the destabilizing force. This is what the stabilizing force, right? Hence the moment of resistance is offered by the sections in the form of reactions, at the bottom. Hence, let us say the additional axial thrust due to the wind in those columns is equal to PAW, A for additional, W for wind. If at all that is due to earthquake load, then you can say PAE due to earthquake, or PAS due to seismic as appropriate. PAE or PAS. Now I'm using PAW, additional axial load due to wind. And that is how the set of forces are generated, PAW forming a couple which try to stabilize the entire structure from the overturning effect, right? Then if I have 4 columns, I have seen a 4-column square tower, then considering some of the movements about this y-axis, then overturning movement is equal to that resisting movement. Then that resisting movement, this overturning movement is movement due to the wind. Now overturning movement is movement due to the wind. That resisting movement is because of the 2 couples which are formed here, right? This is a one couple and another couple, right, which are at a distance of 2 multiplied by r root 2. The distance between these two is the perpendicular distance 2r root 2. Hence there are two such couples with a force multiplied by the perpendicular distance 2r root 2. Then equating both of this, I do have MW is equal to 4 PWR divided by root 2. Or if I say this root 2r by root 2r, root 2r is equal to x, then I can say the above equation as 2pwx, or MW is equal to 2pwx. Hence the additional axial load due to the wind, PAW, in such a case is equal to that overturning movement MW divided by 2x, right? Now I'll go to the tower with 6 columns, right? That is how a benzene shape, right, with six faces, six faces. Then it is a radius, assuming a cylindrical tank, right? All columns are there at a radial distance of r, right? Then this is the CG of that tower, right? The angle between these two columns is 60 degree, because 360 divided by 6, 60. With respect to horizontal, this column is inclined at inclination of 30 degree. Therefore, if this radial distance is r, this then horizontal distance is r by r root 3 by 2, r root 3 by 2, right? Then similarly, you can find out the vertical distance also, right? Therefore, the distance between these two couples is r root 3. This column to this column, this column to this column is r root 3, r root 3. Then I'll take the O-turning moments due to the wind. They are O-turning like this, right? Which are resisted by, now you can see this is the axis of rotation, only one column and one column which are exactly lying on the axis of rotation. Therefore, there is no resistance offered by these two columns. Only these are away from the axis of rotation. This is how one, and this is how the two sets offering a resistance of PW with a distance between these two as 2r root 3 by 2, or that now works out MW is equal to 2 PW multiplied by r root 3. Hence, additional axial load due to wind is MW divided by 2R root 3, 2R root 3. Now, we'll see if at all this is the case too, if wind is blowing across the diagonal of the staging like this. Previously, we have seen normal to the staging. Now, if wind is blowing in this fashion, right? In the previous case, this was blowing normal to this surface, normal to this surface. If wind is blowing like this, right? And obviously, these two exposed areas will now come into picture, right? Then that is how wind is blowing with a design pressure of PD. Then you can see this is the axis of rotation. This is the CG, right? Then these two columns will not offer any resistance, but only these columns which are away from the axis of rotation will offer a resistance of PAW, forming a couple of PAW. Between these two, the distance is R plus R, 2R. Therefore, there is only one couple resisting that, right? That is equal to the O-turning moment, MW. And so the additional axial thrust in such a case is equal to MW divided by 2R, or MW is equal to, even if you say the side of this staging is equal to X, then I can say this distance from this column to this column is equal to root 2x. Either of the two is true. Therefore, additional axial thrust is equal to MW divided by 2R or MW divided by root 2x, where x is the distance between the two columns when seen in the normal direction or side of the square as appropriate. If I do have 6 columns in the tower, 6 column to tower, then if wind is blowing touching the diagonals, in the previous case you have seen normal, now it is touching the diagonals. Hence these are the two exposed surfaces for the windward side. Then you already know from strength of material that M by I is equal to F by Y. Then the stress is directly proportional to the fiber distance under bending. Overturning means it is bending. Hence, from this vertical axis, what are the distance corresponding to that, the stresses are developed. F is stress at that, in that fiber, in that section. Y is the corresponding distance from the axis of the bending or axis of the rotation, right, or axis of the tilting as appropriate, right? Then using that, we'll say that let the these columns which are there on outside surface are developing the resistance as PAW prime 1 2 1 2, right? 4 columns forming 2 couples, and which are there inside. Actually, inside means like this, which are perfectly lying on the horizontal axis of the CG axis. If they are developing a resistance of PAW only, they are forming one couple. Hence, we can say using this F is directly proportional to Y, PAW is directly proportional to R, because this distance is R, and similarly PAW prime is directly proportional to a distance of R by 2. Therefore, I'll take their ratios of 1 and 2 equations. Hence, I can write PAW divided by PAW prime is equal to R by 2. Then that gives the resistance offered by these internal columns is twice that of the exterior columns. Actually, everything is exterior, which are lying away from the CG axis. PAWs which are lying from away from the CG axis. PAW offering resistance of PAW are perfectly lying along the CG axis, right? That is how PAW is equal to 2 multiplied by PAW prime. That is a relation between these two load carrying capacities. Then the port turning moment MW is equal to the resisting moment by these two columns, offering a moment of resistance PAW multiplied by a distance of 2R with one couple, is only one couple, whereas PAW prime 1 plus 1, there are two such couples which are at a distance of R by 2, R by 2, R. That is how there are the two couples, right? That is how now I'll get doing which MW is equal to 3 PAWR, or additional axial thrust or additional axial load in the column due to wind is MW divided by 3R. MW divided by 3R. Then we have seen, if at all 4 number of columns are there, PAW is equal to MW divided by 2R. If 3 columns are there, MW divided by 3R means if 4 columns are there, 4 divided by 2, 2. If 6 columns are there, 6 divided by 2, 3. That is how. If I do have n number of even number of columns, then additional axial load due to wind PAW is equal to MW divided by n by 2 multiplied by R. N by 2 multiplied by R. Right? Without battering. If at all the columns are battered, making an inclination of pi or theta with respect to vertical, this batter is very, very small, maybe 3 or 4 degrees or 5 degrees as appropriate, keeping in the requirement of the stability. Therefore, in such a case, that additional axial load in the columns, in the battered columns, is equal to PAW MW divided by n by 2R as appropriate. That multiplied by cos pi, because cos component will be forming the couples. Cos component is a vertical component. Horizontal component is sin pi. The sin pi components will be get nullified by taking sigma h is equal to 0. Right? Vertical components are cos pi. Therefore, by taking some of the moments about axis of bending, I do have only cos pi components, vertical components only. Right? Then let us see further analysis of the staging. Now I want to get the sway. The next heading is sway of the staging, total lateral sway. This is how staging is shown, which is divided into 2 panels, right? Let the distance between the 2 columns is equal to A, and let the height of each panel is equal to small h, and let a force of capital Q is acting on on one side of the tank, in the form of lateral force, like this, right? In the form of lateral force at the top of the tank, which is supported on the staging, actually, right? Supported on the staging, right? Then that lateral force on the tank is also presumed to be acting at the bottom of the tank. We'll calculate that. We'll see the procedure how to calculate, right? Therefore, with that force, now it will try to rotate. The staging will try to rotate about vertical axis. Then what is that sway? Measured from the initial position delta, right? That is how it is notated by delta, right? Previously, the panel which was A, B, C, D before application of this lateral load, which was either square or rectangle, will deform to a new position A prime, B prime, C, D, by just considering the panel deformation of only one panel, right? Likewise, even if the bottom panel is also deforming, then the relative term will come into picture. Means C will move to C prime and D will move to D prime as appropriate, right? Then I'm just illustrating only with one panel sway only, right? Then that is how B will move to B prime, A will move to A prime new position. Then the dotted line indicates the deformed shape. Now what I'll do is I'll connect this diagonal DB for the elongated deformed shape or elastic curve, right? DB prime. Then I can now drop a perpendicular B double prime on this line DB prime. This is a perpendicular dropped here, right? Which is cutting the line DB at B double prime like this at B double prime, right? That to some exaggerated view. From the schematic, we can say that the DB prime is equal to DB double prime plus B double prime B prime, right? That next. However, DB double prime is numerically equal to DB initial length plus that B double prime B prime. Right? Now, let us say the length of that horizontal brace is A and height of that panel is equal to small h, and the area of the cross section of this bracing, either horizontal bracing or that of the diagonal bracing, is A. Then now the length of this diagonal bracing is L, which is square root of A square plus H square, and let Ft or T is a tensile force in the diagonal bracing. This diagonal bracing dB, right? Then we can say that from the schematic Q over A, right? Ft is over a length of L. Therefore, by taking its ratio Q over A, Ft over L, I can say that Ft is equal to QL by A. Ft is equal to QL by A is the tension in the diagonal bracing. But we already know that the extension of a diagonal bracing given by the formula PL by AE, right? But that delta is now, that extension is B double prime B prime is the extension of this diagonal bracing. Diagonal bracing will extend by an amount of B prime B double prime, right? Therefore, instead of P, now I'm putting the tension force and its initial length L divided by AE, where A is the area of the cross section, E is the Young's modulus. Then I'll get by substituting Ft is equal to QL by A in this formula, that B prime B double prime is equal to QL square divided by small a area multiplied by area multiplied by Young's modulus, where A is the length of that horizontal bracing. Then even now I'll go to the similar triangles. From the schematic, I do have the two similar triangles, triangle BCD. From the triangle BCD, I can say that cos theta is equal to DC divided by DB. Then DC is nothing but A and DB is equal to L. That is how from triangle BCD. Similarly, I'll take the triangle B prime B double prime. This triangle, right? This triangle, from which now I can say that this cos theta from that triangle is cos theta is also B double prime divided by B prime by B double prime B prime divided by BB prime. But both are cos thetas. Therefore, now equating one with the other, now I'll get A by L is equal to B prime B double prime divided by BB prime. Therefore, now I'll get what is that delta, the sway in the horizontal bracing. Sway is the horizontal sway in the horizontal bracing delta is equal to B double prime, B double prime, L by A. But we already know what is B prime, B double prime, which is QL squared divided by AE. Substituting that, now I'll get sway in the horizontal bracing. Delta is equal to QL cube divided by A square, A multiplied by A square, AE. This is what the sway in the horizontal bracing by taking only one panel. Like that, if you have 1, 2, 3, n number of panels, then simply I can use law of superposition that the total horizontal sway at the top, when starting from the bottom panel, right? Delta 1, that of the bottom one, second one, delta 2, delta 3 dash dash, right? That is what the summation over n is equal to 1 to n qi, summation over I 1 to n qi li cube divided by a square AIEI. Right? That is how the summation. I think this is how the analysis procedure for the staging. Students, I hope you understood the discussions and the codal specifications, how the loads need to be taken on the rectangular plated tanks, and two on rectangular pressed steel tanks. Uh, in the next class, we shall meet with a numeric problem using these codal specifications. Till then, we'll meet in the next class with next discussion. I think if you like these discussions, please click like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Till then, bye bye. Thank you, students.